here we have our skirt waistband. According to the instructions, it tells us that we have to first put in place our interfacing, which we did not cut out. We're going to save that for our chosen fabric. And right now it's just our practice skirt waistband piece. So once we put our interfacing in, just to picture it, we're going to turn in 5/8 of an inch along our unnotched side of our waistband and then trim it in place. But we're not doing that for this practice skirt. So we're just going to leave that as is for now. And we're going to go ahead and fold our waistband with right sides together. Just so. All right. Okay, so since our fold line is on the right side, we're going to just focus on making sure our edges are even. We're kind of there. Of course, we are not folding and trimming anything, so we're going to have to probably improvise a little here. But don't worry, I got your back. Okay, so we got our waistband folded. We're now going to base stitch the ends of our waistband together. So that would be here, and that would also be here. So we're just going to base stitch these ends together. So I'm going to get my pins and my seam gauge ruler. And I'm going to pin these short edges together at the 5/8 inch seam allowance. Right here, and now I'm going to get my pin, just pin it there. Okay, let's double check and make sure that we got it right. Okay, so it's a bit crooked. Let me straighten that out. All right, that looks good. Fix this. Alright, let's double check. Make sure the pin. Okay, it's a little bit. Double check that. Alright, much better. Okay, so I've got the end of my waistband pinned here, and I got the end of my waistband pinned right over here. And I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to base stitch these edges in place. Alright, so once again, check to see my thread tail is behind my presser foot. I'm going to put my project underneath my presser foot. Make sure the edge of my project lines up with the edge of my tape, which is at 5/8 inch. I'm going to put down my presser foot. And then I'm going to put down my needle. And then I'm going to pull out my pin and sew a long base stitch. My needle is in the upright position. Now I'm going to lift my presser foot, pull my project out, and cut the thread tail. Okay. And now I'm going to go and get the other end of my waistband. Proceed to straighten out my thread tail so that's behind my presser foot. Place my project underneath the presser foot. Make sure the raw edge is right up against the edge of my tape, which is at 5/8 inches. Put down my presser foot. Okay. Alright, let me go and move this project up a little bit further. I like to try and make sure that my base stitches start at the edge, because that way my project will have a better chance of staying in place. Alright. I can move it a little bit more to make sure I do that. Okay. Alright, much better. Alright, now I've got everything positioned. I'm pulling out my pin, and now I'm going to make my base stitch. Okay. So I'm going to crank my needle, make sure it's in the upright position. I'm going to lift my presser foot, pull my project out, and cut the thread tail. Alright, so I now have my waistband gently folded along the fold line, right sides together, and in this case the right sides of this waistband are all of our labels and markings on it. And I have the ends basted together. Next step is to turn the waistband right side out. Now the instructions tells us we have to press everything, but we're not going to do that because this is just for fit purposes only. So we're just going to leave it the way it is for now. Now here we have our waistband, right sides folded out, and now our ends are neatly tucked in and basted in place. Alright, so once we got this done, it's time to put the waistband on our skirt. Okay. So we're going to roll out our skirt and make sure that the right side is facing upward towards us. So this part may take up the whole of your table. Don't worry about that. We're just going to do our best. Okay, so the next step on this practice skirt project will be attaching our waistband to the top of our skirt. And we're going to make sure that we can match all the different markings, symbols, and notches available on our waistband to the top of our skirt. And we're going to make sure that the right sides of both pieces are facing each other. So the right side of our waistband right here is going to be meeting the right side of our skirt right here. So first, let's position our waistband center back, right where the center back is on our skirt, which should be right here. Okay, and now I'm going to pin that in place. And this time I'm just going to do it horizontally instead of vertically like I've been doing these last couple of steps. I'm going to make sure that the pointy end of my pin is facing the edge of my skirt. Alright, now that I got that, I'm now going to I'm going to make sure on this side of my skirt the notch on both pieces are in the right spot. So what is considered my right side of the skirt, I am placing it right here. Okay, so got that in place. I'm just gonna pin in this spot here. Don't worry if they don't line up exactly. Since we skipped a few steps here, things are not going to be exactly where they should be, but as long as we are near each other, it should be okay. Alright. So now that that's been done, I'm going to place that the end of my waistband right up against the end of my skirt and just pin that in place. Alright, now that I've done that, I'm just gonna try and add a pin to this spot here. Okay. Right next to the square marking. Okay. Now I'm going to just shift the other skirt side over and do the same thing there as well. This is not going to be exact due to it being a practice piece and avoiding a couple of steps, but we're only putting this together to see if the size works for our measurements. We'll be dismantling it after we're done. Okay, now got this whole thing pinned to our skirt. I have made sure that my notches for both are aligned in the same spot. Also made sure that the ends are for the most part up evenly with one another, and that the center back on both the waistband and the skirt are in the same spot as well. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go to my sewing machine and base stitch the waistband in place. Okay, so now I'm at my machine. I'm going to make extra sure that I have my thread tail, have it as long as I would like to. I'm also going to make sure that, okay, so 5/8 is right there too. Okay, so before we begin, according to the instructions, we're going to sew the waistband to our skirt and make sure we leave one end free as we do it. So, to clarify, I will be sewing this waistband to the skirt inside. The waistband. And I'm going to leave this side of the waistband free, because once we base stitch the waistband in, we're going to turn the whole band up, and this edge here is going to cover the edge of the skirt inside the waistband. So I'll show you when we get there, but for now I'm going to straighten this out. And just for this particular purpose, I'm going to get the pin I previously pulled out, and I'm going to pin it right back inside my skirt. That way it won't move while I am base stitching it in place. This part is going to take a little bit of maneuvering, but it's going to be okay. So we're going to just have our project sitting right about here. Okay. And now we're going to check and see our raw edge is lined up along the edge of my 5/8 inch tape marker. Then I'm gonna put my needle inside the machine, and I'm going to push this through and base stitch the waistband inside to my skirt top. This part you want to take your time with. You don't want to rush, because you're going to be sewing on the inside of the waistband. So you're not sewing the entire waistband to your skirt just yet. You're just going to do the inside. just hand crank it. What's left? Alright. We got our needle in the upright position. Now we're going to lift our presser foot, pull out our project from the machine, and snip. Okay. This part is going to be a little tough to maneuver, especially when you get started. But, like I've mentioned many times, we're only doing this for practice. So, we don't have to worry about accuracy or getting it completely right. We just want it put together so that we'll be able to try it on and see if it fits. Okay, so once we've done that, we're now going to flip our waistband over to the other side, making sure we tuck in the self-facing. Okay. So we're not folding and pressing anything, so we're going to have to work a little bit harder keeping this straight as we do. Alright, so now I've done that, as you can see, we are now looking at the inside of our wrap skirt. We got our waistband flipped over. And as you can see here, the skirt top edge is completely concealed inside our waistband. And here is the edge of our wrap skirt, where the self-facing is also tucked in underneath our waistband. And here on the other side, the self-facing is tucked in nicely underneath our waistband. Of course, here is not as perfect as I would like, but fortunately, we're not looking for that at the moment. We just want this constructed so we can try it on. So for now, it'll do. Alright. So, once we've done that, we're going to go back to the right side of our skirt. Alright, so we are now back to the right side of our skirt, and we're going to, so what's called edge stitching. We're going to edge stitch the waistband so that it will stay put. Okay. So what I mean by edge stitching is that we're going to stitch on the outside, and we're going to do it as close to the seam edge here between the skirt and the waistband as possible. So not only will it serve as a means to keep the waistband on the inside in place, but it will also be a bit of a decorative move as well. So I'll show you on the machine how to do that, but for now, let's get our pins out and pin this waistband in place. Okay, so let's start with the front here. Gonna right at our back center, we're gonna pin it horizontally, like we did before, making sure that the waistband behind is also pinned nice and flat. You want to make sure that's the case, so when you push this through the machine, it doesn't get bunched up as you do it. I've had that happen to me a couple of times, so to save you the grief, make sure you do that. Alright, looks like we'll need just one more. There. Alright, so we're gonna double check and make sure that everything is nice and flat on the inside. Okay, looks good. Alright, I'm satisfied. Alright, so we're going to flip this back around. We're going to bring this over to the machine, and I'll show you how to edge stitch the waistband to the skirt. Alright, so first we're going to make sure our thread tail is nice and long. Alright. We're now going to position our project underneath the machine presser foot. And we're going to lower that presser foot. Alright, looks like we might need to move this up, so let's just scooch this over just a little bit. This part we won't need our tape marker. We're going to use the edge of our waistband as our guide for this base stitch. Okay, so now we're going to hand crank the needle into the machine to make sure it's in the right place. Okay, it is, but it's a little bit too far in. So I'm just going to lift this up and scooch it over just a smidge. Put back down my presser foot. All right. Let's see. That'll be all right. We're gonna stick with this position. All right, so hand crank your needle into the machine. Straighten out your fabric. Make sure everything is nice and flat underneath. Get any stray threads out of the way. All right, and now we're going to base stitch the waistband onto our skirt as close to the edge as we can get it. All right, we're all done. So I'm going to make sure The needle is up. Then I pull presser foot, pull my project out, and snip it from the machine. Alright, so we have our skirt waistband put in place with an edge stitch close to our waistband seam.